Hi everyone, this is Cheryl and welcome to my sewing room. I've got a really fun machine applique project that you can do. I used a foam gingerbread man decoration. I'm going to show you how to turn that into fabric and create this really cute pot holder. So let's get started. The approximate finished size of the pot holder is 7.5 by 9.5 inches. I'm using a gingerbread man decoration as my pattern, and you can find these at Dollar Tree. That's where mine came from, but you can probably go to a lot of the other 99-cent stores and find something similar. Or you can draw your own gingerbread man pattern. You'll need iron-on fusible web, and the brand that I'm using is Pellon Easy Steam. You can get this at Joann's. You can also get it at other fabric websites, and you can also go on Amazon.com and purchase it. I'm using rickrack. You'll need about a 10-inch long piece. Fabric, you're going to cut one for the front that is 7.5 by 9.5. and also one for the back that is also 7.5 by 9.5. You'll need 2 pieces of cotton batting that is 7.5 inches by 9.5 inches. For the binding, you'll need to cut a piece that's 2 3/4 inches wide by 40 inches. Here is the gingerbread man, and it comes in a package, of a lot. I think you get 8 in a package. Here it is right here. And here is the label on it, so you know what you're looking. And it's made out of foam. Now, in my previous video, in which I showed you my Dollar Tree finds, I kept saying they were felt. They're foam. And one of the questions I had is, can I stitch these onto fabric? I don't think it's a good idea because I don't know how well it would wash up. So what I'm going to show you how to do is to trace this onto your fusible web. So here's a sheet of the fusible web. There's 2 sides to it. There's blue grid lines on one side and plain paper on the back. In between the 2 layers of paper, there is a thin layer of glue. So take your gingerbread man and you're going to trace around it on the blue grid line side of your fusible web. Then you're going to cut it out, but don't cut on the drawn lines. You're going to come out about 1/4 inch, even a little more if you want, and cut it out. To be able to fuse it onto your fabric, turn it over to the back, and you're going to remove this paper on the back. And if you have a hard time lifting, just go ahead and take a straight pin and cut that paper on the back. Just score it. Then bend it, and when a piece of the paper comes up, begin pulling it off. Now, make sure you're not lifting the glue off. So be really careful that only the paper comes up. So go ahead and remove your paper off. Here is the fabric that I'm using. Turn it over to the back and place the gingerbread man fusible web on the back side of your fabric and finger press it down really, really good. And now you're going to take scissors and cut right on the drawn lines. After it's cut out, you want to remove the blue grid line paper. And again, if you're having trouble getting it up, take a straight pin and score the paper. Bend it and try to get an edge to pop up. There it is. And then go ahead and remove this. Whoops, I can't. There, now I got a hold of it. And pull it off. Take your fabric and have the front side up. And center the gingerbread man on your fabric. Now, until you get it centered to where you like it, then you don't want to press it down just yet. So keep shifting it until you got it straight and centered. And then finger press it down all over once you got it where you like it. This next step you need to do at your ironing board or use a pressing mat like I have. To fuse it on, you want to read your package instruction on your fusible web, especially if you're using a different brand, so that you follow the steps according to their suggestions. Mine says to place a damp cloth over the top, set your iron to hot and steam, and you're going to hold it down for 12 to 15 seconds and give it a burst of steam. After that 15 seconds is up, you want to lift and move it again and give it a burst of steam and hold it for the 12 to 15 seconds. Move it whatever number of times you need to do to cover the entire applique. After you're done, you want to let this cool. You want the glue to set, so don't do any stitching on it until it's cooled for several minutes. You want to have paper or tearaway stabilizer on when you do all of your embellishments and applique stitching. So go ahead and stitch rickrack on here. I used a zigzag stitch to stitch all of these down. Up here for the face, if you have just some basic decorative stitching choices on your machine, it's going to be real easy to do this. I used a narrow or small satin stitch, and most of your machines that have been manufactured in the last 10 years or so probably have that stitch on there. So I first took anything round and I just traced around it. Here's my pencil. So just go ahead and trace around it. Or you can just freehand draw it. I'm not very good at that. In fact, I'm really bad at it. And then stitch right over that line with your decorative stitching. Now, while you're doing your decorative stitching, if you have an open toe presser foot, it's going to be real easy to see exactly where you are stitching. I used a large satin stitch and put in my eye. So you can do really anything you want. Again, make sure you have paper or tearaway stabilizer behind that. Your last step is to do your decorative edge around your applique pattern here. So I'm going to probably use a medium satin stitch. This is small, a medium satin stitch to go around. So you're going to keep the center of that presser foot right on the edge of your fabric, and it will stitch over the gingerbread man as well as your background fabrics. As I was doing my decorative stitching when I was getting close to the edge of the rickrack, as the rickrack began to shift, even though I stitched it down, and the ends began to unravel a little bit. So to solve that problem, I put Scotch tape over the ends and stitched right over it. And the tape is really easy to rip off. Okay, once you can get the edge lifted, then just tear the Scotch tape off, and you won't even be able to see it. After you've completed all of your embellishments and your decorative stitching, then turn it over to the back and tear the paper off of the back side. After all your stitching is done, then you want to layer your fabrics. So here's the fabric for the back. Then I've got cotton batting on next, and I'm using 2 layers of cotton batting, but you can use 1 layer of Insulbrite and 1 layer of cotton batting. And if you've never heard of Insulbrite, it is a synthetic fabric. It helps to block the heat from penetrating through. Then place pins in all of your arms, legs, and head, and even in the body right here. And you're going to do 1 more stitch. You're going to use a straight stitch, and you're going to stitch right next to your satin stitch here and right there on the background fabric. So you're going to stitch real close. So stitch all the way around, and this kind of helps to give your gingerbread man a little three-dimensional look, very slightly. It helps to press all of this down and let the gingerbread man come up slightly. Take your strip of fabric for the binding and cut your selvage edges off at each end of the strip. And at one end only, fold it over about 1/4 inch and press. Then fold the strip in half and press it all the way down to the other end. Place the end of the binding that has the 1/4 inch folded edge and place it right in the middle. Place that end right in the middle. Then stitch across here, and I do 3/8 of an inch. 3/8 inch stitch lines, and then stop 3/8 of an inch from this corner. Then take the binding and fold it straight out like this to where the edge of the binding is in alignment with the edge of the pot holder. Then take this, put your thumb or finger there, and fold it over and have the folded edge right along this edge here. And I would go ahead and place a pin there while you get it underneath your presser foot. And line this binding up with your edge, and you can pin it down or just hold it there in place. And then stitch another 3/8 of an inch seam all the way down, and again stop 3/8 of an inch away from this edge here, and fold this corner and the next two corners just like you did on this corner up here. Fold the binding out to where it looks like this, and count out 4.5 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4.5, and then cut any excess off that happens to be there. And then at the back side of the binding, which would be this side that's facing up, you're going to cut through just one layer of it. And you're going to cut a square that is about 1.25 inches. Do not cut up to the fold line. Cut up to about 1/4 inch away from the fold line. So you're cutting out this little square, right? Doesn't have to be perfect because no one's going to see this square. Have the side where the square is cut out facing up. Fold this end over 1/4 inch and press with your iron. Then take this edge here, the raw edge, fold it 3/8 of an inch and press. Then fold it in half, bring both edges there together and press. At your ironing board, you want to press the seam right here. So push against your binding and push it going towards the outside, okay? And you're doing this at your ironing board. Now turn this over to the back, and you're going to fold this end over to the back. As you're folding it over to the back, you're taking this folded edge and pulling it past the stitch line right here. If you don't do that, then the next step is not going to work out for you, and you're going to wonder what happened. So continue pinning this down. As you come to your corners when you're pinning, I'll show you how to do that. I have a neat little trick to get those corners to fold just perfectly. On one side, you want to put a pin about 1/2 inch away from the end here, from the corner. Take the other side, fold it over again past that stitch line, and put it about 1.5 inches away from the corner. Take a straight pin and press down, push in all the way over to the edge here, fold the binding over, and then pin. After pinning all of your edges and your corners, turn it over to the front. And you're going to start here in the middle and do stitch in the ditch right along this seam. Stitch in the ditch is where two pieces of fabric come together, and it's right there in that ditch of the seam. You're not going to stitch on top of the binding, but stitch on your background fabric right up against this binding. So stitch all the way down to the corner, leave your needle down, lift up your presser foot, turn your potholder, lower the presser foot, and continue stitching on down to the next corner and go around all the corners just like that. When you come back over to here, stop. As you approach back to the center where you started at, you're going to pull the binding up a little bit and stitch up over the edge of the binding here. Pull this out even more so it's straight up and stitch across. Then, keeping your edges together, stitch right along this edge here, turn it and stitch across here and back stitch a few times. Okay, so now you're almost done. One more little step. So have it out like this, push it this way, tuck it under near the center, okay, and turn it over to the back and put a straight pin to hold. Okay. Now from the front side, you're going to do a little box shape pattern. So just stitch up a few stitches, cross over, down a few stitches, and across again. And I would go around 2 times and then you're done. For more machine applique sewing projects or potholder ideas, play this video all the way to the end where you will see a green screen and then click on the links. If you liked this video, please click on thumbs up and don't forget to click on share to share this video with your friends. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click on that red subscribe button down there in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Click on the little bell and then enter your email address. If you're not receiving emails about my future videos, make sure you look at the settings option on your cell phone or iPad and set notifications to the on position. I'm Cheryl. This is Manny. So glad you came to my sewing room. See you next time and happy sewing.